wondering what your top three priorities were for when you got to Montpelier.
Sure, absolutely. So COVID obviously changes everything. It's the biggest game changer that maybe the world has seen in 100 years, outside of world wars. Um, but a lot of what I see is my big platform issues kind of marry very much into what is going on with COVID right now. Um, the first of those primarily, and this is perfect for my background, is the lack of broadband and broadband structure throughout the state. It's been a problem and an issue for multiple governors now. And as I've been watching it, the issue itself seems to be a fundamental lack of understanding of the physical infrastructure in the state. It isn't a lack of will, and I don't think that it's a lack of desire on the parts of those who are in the legislature to see it done. But I really don't think that anyone is aware of the sheer investment amounts that are required to provide rural broadband. Um, no one knows about the fact that if you want to wire fiber in some parts of the state, you literally need to hire mules to bring the fiber optic cables up a mountain. I do know this because our company has literally had to hire that guy, the one who owns the donkey, who carries the fiber optic cable up the mountain trails. So it's more than just a lack of will. I think that the legislature it lacks a certain amount of fundamental understanding of what it would take to get that done. Very much they rely on small local companies who have had some success. This is getting into the technical aspects of it, like VTEL. They've done some work, but their success has been contained to small local areas. It's not at all encompassing. So I think that the legislature really needs someone who can speak with authority on the matter, and who will push for that, because that leads right into what we're seeing with COVID right now. Right now, the lack of broadband internet access means the difference between someone getting furloughed and being able to work from home. It's the difference between someone and their child being able to continue to attend school, or being able to, or having to have packets of physical materials either driven to them, or somehow received in another way, and then not having access to the teachers that are able to do office hours and Zoom chats throughout the week, like my daughter was. And it's not just a rural problem either. There are significant parts of Essex where the broadband access is just tremendously lacking. And that's the further out past, Old Pump Road that you get. The access to broadband basically nosedives. So it's not just connecting up the smaller communities. I see it also as something where we need to look at the whole picture. All of the towns have these areas, but everybody needs to be served by this, because going forward, I think that COVID is a game changer. I think more people are going to be working from home. They're going to continue working from home. Getting access to that broadband service is going to be critical in the next few years. Second thing I'm really incredibly passionate about is technical education. I spent 2 years on the regional advisory board for the Center for Technology Essex and Burlington Technical Center. And hearing some of the stories of the kids who have success there is incredibly moving, but it's also really disappointing too, because so many of the kids who get sent to a tech center are kids who sometimes are reading at a third or a fourth or a fifth grade level. So there's a significant gap in the kids who end up having to go to the tech center and where they have to start their learning from. If they're taking English classes within the tech center, if you have a kid who is still at a 5th grade reading level and someone who is coming in at an 11th grade reading level, obviously, what do you do with that? There's not enough structure around that, because with tech ed, for those who aren't kind of aware of how the mechanism is set up, in our state, technical education is something where they get a tuition based on the students who attend it. So it's technically open to anyone who wants to attend a regional tech center. Someone who lives in South Burlington can go to Essex Technical Center. But when that happens, the money follows the child. So South Burlington loses the tuition payment to the Center for Technology Essex. What that causes is, and this is something that the head of our CTE facility will admit, is it causes districts to want to keep their kids from going to tech centers. So by and large, they try not to introduce the option of tech centers early. I would like to see that expanded. I would like to see and know that kids who are in 7th and 8th grade and who are maybe struggling with math and struggling with English know that there are these options available at the high school level, at the tech center level, to do things that they may be really interested in. Because we do have some amazing programs at the technical center. And maybe I'm biased because I think CTE is probably one of the best ones in the country. But the kids there are nationally ranked in some things. They can do website design. They can create games that I've literally gone and played. Their automotive program is amazing. The Burlington Tech Center has jet engine repair that they go up to the airport and they do classes about. I mean, the breadth of learning is amazing. And add on to that, some of the more crucial things that they're learning at tech centers are things like health informatics, which we need desperately right now in the state, and we're going to continue to need. And I can see Deja shaking her head because she's in the health field, specifically dealing with insurance and the tracking of tests and everything. That's something that our tech center does. They don't have enough people at the hospitals to sort of fill that need. They can do pre-nursing programs at the technical center. These are programs that are going to be so in demand, but I feel that a lot of kids are lacking in that structure, the ability to access them, just because other districts who surround us don't feel comfortable sending their kid to a tech center knowing they're going to lose that revenue. And that's tough. I'd really like to see that change. I would like a more centralized structure for technical education, where the money isn't getting pulled from districts, but rather is getting funded by the state directly to the technical centers. So if a child wants to go and learn at a tech center, their district's not sitting back worried about, what are we going to do about the $16,000 that we're going to lose if our child goes to CTE? Those are my, I think, 2 really passionate issues. And that I think also Brian kind of loops in the third one, the COVID. How to deal with the fallout of that is, I want to say I try to keep a cheerful and happy face about it, but it's scary. I think for those of us who are lucky enough to kind of retain jobs, might be feeling better about that than most, but there are so many people whose jobs are kind of hanging on by a thread right now. Restaurants who are kind of on the verge of deciding whether or not they can stay in business. This is part of what I do as a select person. I go out, and I have been to restaurants around Essex, talk to the owner of Mimo's, talk to the owner of Jules on the Green, and getting a feel for whether or not they think they can continue to keep their people employed. It's not easy. So many of these companies are just on the verge right now. And now that rent is coming due and mortgages are coming due and the whole idea of relief from evictions is passing, We're going to see so much kind of hit us all at once, as far as people who may be losing jobs, losing the ability to pay mortgage, to pay rent, to pay taxes that are due in September, that we're kind of really only at the beginning of this. So someone who has a background in knowing how all of these kind of taxes sort of mix with one another, I think is something that I can, or at least maybe it's a conceit of mine, but I think I have a kind of a pretty good idea of how everything is connected, in the town, in the junction, how businesses work together, how the larger scale structures that we have in place, impact the smaller ones. So that was a really long-winded answer to your